Hi everybody, welcome to this Rugby Coach Weekly special event where we're going to be talking about axial loading. So the person that I would always go to on matters of scrummaging and other matters, to be fair, is Graham Smith. Graham Smith is a World Cup winning coach of 2014, the England women's team. I've worked with him over the summer. I've known him for a long, long time. He along with Graham Roundtree and Ian Peel, put together the RFU's plan for the future of scrummaging about 10, 15 years ago, and it built and built and built. So I can't think of anyone that would know more about scrummaging than Graham Smith. Graham, how are you? It's good to talk to you.
I'm good, thank you, Eamonn. I'm good.
Yeah, it's good. This is an interesting one because I was shopping in Morrison's on Saturday, and you gave me a ring and said, I can't believe, and you were raging about the refereeing of the Harlequins Bath game. But more specifically about the scrummaging. And if you're on Twitter, folks, I'd really follow Graham about scrummaging on Twitter because he's really perceptive. But I was fascinated by this. And as we started talking, I thought this would be an interesting conversation to have recorded and placed on Rugby Coach Weekly, because I think there's going to be a lot of questions about this. And there's a depth that we went to on Saturday that I think we should bring into perspective, but we'll get to that. So Graham, first thing, what is it? Axial loading, and when does it occur?
Well, I can answer this, but it's something I don't coach and I don't see the need for. So it's, if you look at the science behind it, what I've briefly seen and read on it, it is when either hooker or both hookers put their head into the shoulder of their opponent to load weight to gain an advantage on the hit. Now, that is putting an extreme amount of pressure through the neck, the area of the cervical spine. And, you know, my concern would be not now. I mean, there is a chance of injury now, but that may be or maybe not. However, long-term effect is what would concern me, because you know, from personal experience, my neck's not in a great shape, and I scrummaged in an era where the distances were not regulated, and they could come at you from anywhere. And I only have had one neck injury in my career, and I thought at the age of 44, 45, I was fine. As I've got older, I've realised that there's problems there. So my concern would be not the now, but the future of these players who are using axial loading to gain an advantage, if you can. I'm not sure you can, but what it's doing for the long-term state of their neck would be a real concern to me.
So this particular slide was put up by Ken Quarry in response to a journalist from Scotland. And as you can see on the screen, there's the chief scientist for New Zealand Rugby, put up two pictures. This was the first. And this is the I've missed one. Have I missed one somewhere? Oh, hang on. There it is. That's the one I'm looking for. So Graham, looking at that picture there, what we are focusing on here is this bit here where the arrows are. And yeah. Ken has brilliantly put that on there. You've explained it quite well, but as you can see, the hook is not the only one. You know, the tight head loose head on this side, tight head loose on this. They've all got their heads engaged with the shoulders of their opposing number. And as you've quite rightly said, that's problematic, I would suggest.
It is, and it brings into the question the legality of it, and the coaching of it, because there is, as I understand it, there is no illegal aspect to axial loading, except for two things. One would be safety, if the referee deemed the scrum was unsafe, and two, there's supposed to be a gap.
Yeah,
you know, there's supposed to be a bind, and then there's supposed to be a gap. And for me, the simple solution is make sure there's a gap.
Yeah, this is a quote from the World Rugby release, Graham. So there's a lot of stuff that we're talking about here, but this is their release, as you can see in the background there. It's a direct quote from there, and it happens, as you said, between the bind and the set. Is outlawed. It was. I mean, I remember we're discussing this with you when we were in the Czech Republic over the summer, And he said, well, surely we shouldn't be doing that anyway. And I remember watching you do umpteen sessions, and you've never taught this, never ever taught it.
No, because for me, if we forget, or if we put to one side, if it's been outlawed, it's illegal. If it's illegal, the referee has a responsibility to deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's being coached, then we're coaching something that is illegal, which brings into question, right, who's responsible for the long-term effect?
Yeah.
Because we've already got major issues with concussion class actions. So is this the next one, would be my concern.
I mean, sorry, Graham, to interrupt, but the question, I mean, this is touching on the next part, which is who authorised this use in the first place? Now, you were a rugby development officer for the Rugby Football Union here in England. You were an international coach. You were a level 5 coach. There was nobody more informed about the scrum, and not just as a coach, but also as the implementation of its teaching than you, and Ian and Graham, and the three of you together, and a number of other people. And even today, a number of the people that are coaching scrummaging in the Premiership would have been on courses that you have taught. And I'm just curious as to where did it come from? I mean, who said it was okay to do it in the first place?
I don't know, and you've mentioned names there, and I can't speak for those names, but you know, people that I respect in the game and have had many discussions with regarding scrummaging. Peter Bracken, ex-England international, Graham Roundtree, ex-England international, and Lions coach. You've got Matt Ferguson at Northampton, who I mentored for a number of years, and Ian Peel, who has coached England, Saracens, and we've never had a discussion about axial loading. Yeah.
I mean, that's the great thing. I mean, the guys you've mentioned, world-class coaches in their own right, proven world-class coaches. So I find it hard to believe that, I mean, unless I'm missing something, as a grassroots coach, getting this information coming to me from World Rugby that we're going to trial this in the Six Nations, probably the most popular rugby event of any given calendar year here in the UK and in Ireland and in France and Italy. It's just huge. And they're going to be trialing this, and a lot of people won't know what it is, why there's going to be a penalty given for it, and so on and so forth. So it's why we're discussing this here, and we don't know why it's happening. The other thing I want to bring to notice is on the bottom there is another quote from a World Rugby release, and it says, it's done in particular to balance tactical and stability considerations, which has meant that axial loading has not been completely eliminated. So that comes down to the technical side, which is we're going to talk about handbrake, the foot brake, I guess we're going to call it more technically. What is that, and why are they now going to focus on having a foot brake?
Well, before we go to the foot brake, can we go back to this quote? However, the dynamic nature of the scrum at the elite level, and in particular to balance tactical and stability considerations, has meant axial loading has not been completely eliminated. First of all, I do not believe axial loading benefits any tactical or stability considerations at all, personally. Right. And I'll explain why. If a hooker has his head or her head pressed firmly into the shoulder of their opponent, when they go to win the space or the hit, they're going on a downward axle. Right. They're going down.
Yeah, yeah.
If we are, let's say, ear to ear or temple to temple,
yeah,
I want to win a battle that is speed over a short distance with a low up trajectory. So I'm going in firmly, and then once I win the comfort battle, so who's most comfortable first, then I will probably then start trying to assert my authority with my technique.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't see how it has the benefits of tactical and stability. And you do you don't want scrums to fold in.
No.
And the reason for that is both teams are responsible for it staying up, and for it to stay up, there's got to be some powerful engagement.
Right.
And I've said this many, many times on many courses, right? You cannot put a 6-inch nail into a piece of wood with a sponge.
Yeah.
You're going to have a hammer.
Yeah.
You know, and that is firmly driven in. And the scrum should be firmly and safely driven in.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind if they're ear to ear. I don't mind if they're temple to temple. I don't mind if they're forehead in line with forehead. That still gives us that gap. Yeah. And with axial loading, as you say, it was outlawed, but also under the law of there needs to be a space. Yeah. The referee can easily see there's no space, so penalise one team.
It's interesting because we had this conversation on Saturday and we said, well, referees don't call the phrase axial loading. They'll say, I need a gap, I need a gap, I need a gap. That's what they call. That's what we're talking about. Again, and I should make it clear, we don't know, I can't tell for a fact because of the camera angles on TV, that this is happening in the Premiership, is happening in the URC, is happening. I don't know. I'm assuming that they've seen a problem and they've gone, yeah, we need to change this. So again, we don't know because although I've coached professionally and Graham's coached professionally, this is not something that we're actually not coaching professionally as in at the elite level of the game in the men or women currently. So we don't know why people are saying this, or why this is happening. And I just want to make that clear. But again, we still can't figure it out. We still can't figure it out.
If you listen to many scrums in many games, you will get the props either deliberately or by accident or by, let's call it, trying to get an advantage, actually line up head to head.
Right.
And the referee will say, no, break up, you're going head to head, I don't want to see that. So I don't see why a referee can't look and say, you're putting your head in his shoulder, I don't want to see that, because it's the same line that they're looking down. Yeah. You mentioned the hooker break, which means that the hooker is going to put their lead foot, which I would probably assume is the right foot, in front of their body line, to put a break on the scrum and to stop the scrums getting too close to perform axial loading. Whilst I understand the technique of it, I have concerns about how that will affect the engagement, because from what I've read, there'll be a crouch where the referee wants to see the hooker crouch with their foot in front of the chest, which to me means it's compromising their body height and the angle of their hip. Then on the bind, the foot remains in place. So that means that the props are taking their feet back to get a bind, but the hookers are leaving their feet in front of them, which means that the front row aren't aligned. And then on the set, the foot comes back and they engage. Now, there's two things about that set piece. If I'm a hooker and I'm taking my foot back from a front position to a drive position, then I'm actually going to step over my foot, which means my chest and hips will rise. Right. The second thing is, if I am quicker with my feet than my opponent and we engage on the set, my feet are back and that player's on one leg.
Right. I get you.
And then there's another, that player then has got to try and get that leg back down very quickly to resist the force that's coming through.
Right.
We don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but I would suggest it could be a lot of instability. And I don't think the scrum will go down because the angles are not right for it to go down, but I think it could go back, and then we've got to have a reset, and then the referee's going to say you hit early or whatever. Okay. And I just think that if we just coached the scrum correctly and we refereed it by the letter of the law, including, while we're on the subject, putting the ball in straight, then we wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So look,
So,
just sorry, mate. Go ahead. Sorry, I apologise. Go ahead.
I was just going to finish off by saying my concern, and I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I certainly don't think I'm World Rugby's cup of tea, but that's by the by. My concern is when we have an issue, we try and change the law to make it better. And then all coaches do is look for another way around it instead of saying, no, that's the law, coach to the law, or we'll penalise you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear what you're saying. I think World Rugby do try, they used to put down edicts and then just leave it at that, and then coaches find a way. I think they're getting towards a better system now by bringing coaches into the process and thinking like coaches as opposed to making an edict from on high. I think a better example of that is the 50-20 kicks. I think that's opened up a little bit, and I think they trialed that first and they asked coaches about that, and universally that's been approved. I'm not sure about the being held up under the line being a dropout. I'm not sure about that one, but I think what you hinted at it earlier, and I think we need to come back to it, is future problems with coaching things that aren't in a manual. If you do something outside of a manual in civil society, and I don't mean that in polite society, I mean civilians. If you do anything outside of a manual, you can be fired for it or sued for it or something like that. Because, again, I'm happy to be proved wrong here, but if axial loading is in a book, it's fine. But I've never seen it. I've never seen it taught by any of the governing bodies in rugby. In 15 years, we've already, as I said on the screen there, that's David Walsh's article from the Times, looking at concussion. Is this another problem that if we don't solve this problem, 15 years from now, players will be having such injuries on their necks and their back that there may be more lawsuits, because we're actually coaching something that isn't in the book. It's something that is woolly enough for a very sharp lawyer to come in and go, well, you didn't lay it down. And again, I'm thinking as the devil's advocate here. I know I may be over-egging this, but this is another reason why, you know, having watched yourself coach scrummaging, how careful you are at doing it, that if you teach it wrong and you coach outside of the given the guidance, we could see real problems here.
Well, how about you consider what is in the textbooks on scrummaging, RFU, World Rugby? None of those feature anything to do with collapsed scrums or how to counter a collapsed scrum or how to stop it. Because if you advise somebody to do something to prevent something and they get injured doing it, then you're liable.
Right.
So this goes way back really to, there was a prop forward from New Zealand called Richard Lowe.
Yes.
Let's just say Richard had a reputation.
Yes, I remember.
On the field, okay? And Richard started a program of teaching and coaching the scrum around New Zealand. And everybody thought it was going to be about Richard Lowe's dark arts, how to do this, how to do that. And what he did was coach technique. And whenever he was asked a question on, oh, if he does this to me, I'll do that to him, what do you think? He'll go, if you're uncomfortable, if you're under pressure, go back to your shape and get square.
Yeah.
Stay low and tight and trust your technique.
Yeah.
Because any other advice opens you up to being liable to advising somebody to do something that gets them injured, and then you're in a whole deep pile of do.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's the same here. Now, with the concussion, how do we teach the tackle? What are we teaching? And why are we teaching it? And if we are, you see, in grassroots rugby, grassroots rugby is about the advantage of who can last 80 minutes or 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Who can breathe at the end of the game. International rugby, professional rugby is about an advantage, you know, that 1%. And so they're always looking for the advantage, but we've got to be very careful when we're looking for an advantage that we're not compromising our players or the opponents that we're playing against.
The game is hard enough without doing something outside of the norm. So that would give you an advantage, but it could be seriously problematic down the road. Seriously problematic. But yeah, so Graham, you've already hinted at it. What does this axial loading mean for grassroots coaches?
Absolutely nothing. Just don't do it.
Don't do it. It's correct.
I just had a thought come into my head because obviously there are a wide range of scrum machines now that you can do all sorts of things with. And there is still a lot of clubs around that have probably got a sled where you add weight to or you put bodies on. Now, there's a lot of these sleds that have got no band system, okay, to help with the resistance of load. Yeah. So, you know, I made this mistake a long time ago. And if you put too much weight on one of these sleds and you get teams to hit it because you want to win that hit, then all you're doing is compressing their spine. Yeah. And this is the same thing about axial loading. All you're doing is compressing the spine, and that's going to lead to bone degeneration in the spine. So for grassroots, I would say coach good technique. And if you don't know how to, find somebody who does.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're using a machine and it's a non-resistance machine, so it's just a block that has no bands or way of resistance or hydraulics for resistance, then fold in, don't hit in, and use it for technique and limited drive only. Okay. The best way to improve scrummaging is live scrums, but you need to do it with care and consideration. And if you have machines that, I know we've gone off at a tangent here, Eamonn, and I promised you I wouldn't, but I have. If you have machines that are banded, don't just ram bands on a pump upon bands, because then it just becomes a loaded machine and not a resistance machine. Each band that you have on a machine, whichever the model, is worth 25 kilos of resistance. So 3 bands is 75 kilos of resistance, 6 bands is 150 kilos of resistance, and you've got that on 2 heads. That's 300 kilos of resistance across your front row. Okay. And the same with your vertical resistance. Okay. So you need to know how to load that to get maximum use out of that machine. And all that is about safety of the neck and spine.
Agreed. Yeah. No, everything you're saying is perfect. Yeah, that's the thing. Rugby Coach Weekly is ostensibly a grassroots magazine. That doesn't mean it's not read by the elite, but it's primarily, I think it's important that we remember that the vast majority of people in this country are amateur players, and many of them grassroots. So this has been a Rugby Coach Weekly presentation. There's our email address, our web address, rugbycoachweekly.com. Graham's on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn. Any questions for either one of us, please do have a chat with us. And that's it. Thanks very much for watching this Rugby Coach Weekly event. Thank you very much, Graham. Hope you have a good day.
Well, thanks very much for allowing me to have a chat, Eamonn. As usual, we usually get to the root of things. And look, there'll be people out there that don't agree with this, and that's fine. You know, as I've said for many years, if people don't agree with anything a coach does and their way is better, there's only one way to find out. Your team plays my team, and who wins? The coach is the better coach.
Correct. Graham, thank you very much for your time, my friend. See you later.
All right. Thanks, Eamonn. Bye.
Bye, mate. Bye. All right.